There is a moment, a stillness heavy and dense, when the weight of the world presses down, when the mountains rise before you like colossal shadows. Impossibly high, immovable, unyielding. It is the moment you find yourself staring into a cracked mirror, the face looking back tired, worn, defeated. The voice inside whispers with a fragile, broken certainty, "This is it. This is the end of the road." The air is thick with despair. Your heart is a cage of unanswered questions and silent screams. You stand there, surrounded by ruins of hopes that once gleamed like stars, now dimmed by the harsh light of reality. The mountain's shadow swallows you whole. But even in this darkest hour, there is a tremor, a stirring deep within, that refuses to be silenced. It is the faint pulse of something greater, something unseen but unshakably real, the whisper of an ancient truth that says, impossible is not the end. It is the canvas for God's masterpiece. The impossible is the playground of divine power where human strength fades, but God's glory rises like the dawn. To face this mountain is to face the invisible. It is a battle not of flesh and blood, but of faith. And faith is not silence. Faith is the voice raised in the storm. Not a timid whisper, but a bold declaration, a shout against the night that says, God makes the impossible possible. Say it. Say it once. Say it twice. Say it 3 times. Not because repetition is magic, but because your words are the sparks that ignite the fire of belief. The mountain trembles when faith is spoken aloud, when it is carried on the winds of your breath. You do not stand alone. The God who spoke galaxies into being, who painted the skies with stars and breathed life into dust, stands with you. He does not whisper promises in distant heavens. He moves. His hands are strong, his heart fierce, his power relentless. He specializes in the impossible. The mountain before you may be vast, but his love is vaster still. There is a divine rhythm here, a pattern that echoes through time. Faith spoken boldly thrice. Mountains moved, miracles born. 3 times the word is spoken, 3 times heaven answers. The ancient stories are alive. They pulse with the heartbeat of God's unstoppable might. Like a trumpet call, they pierce the silence of your despair, breaking the chains of doubt. Listen, hear the roar beneath the quiet, the voice of the one who never slumbers. You are standing on holy ground, a place where impossible is not a barrier, but a beginning. You are invited into the story of resurrection, where dry bones dance and rivers part. The mountain's shadow is a mere veil over the promise of light. The world may look at your mountain and say, this is too big. The fear may grow like a wild beast, clawing at your heart, whispering lies that you are weak, broken, unworthy. But fear shrinks when God expands. When your view of the Almighty widens, the mountain narrows. It becomes a stepping stone, a landmark of the journey, not the end. Step into the stillness. Speak with the authority of the heavens. Declare your faith 3 times, not to prove something to others, but to awaken the dormant power within yourself. The impossible bends before the voice that dares to believe, that refuses to bow, that rises with the courage of 1,000 prayers. This is no mere phrase. It is a battle cry for the soul, a beacon for the lost, a fortress for the weary. God makes the impossible possible. Let it roll off your tongue like thunder. Let it root in your spirit like ancient oak. Let it rise in your heart like the first light of dawn. Because God does not delay, He acts. He moves in moments when all human hope has fled, when eyes are dry from tears and hearts are shattered like broken glass. His power is not limited by time or circumstance. It is eternal, relentless, unstoppable. You stand at the threshold. The mountain looms large, but so does the God who calls you forth. The impossible is not your sentence. It is your summons. Speak the words that unleash heaven's might. Faith is the spark. God's power is the flame. Say it, believe it, live it. God makes the impossible possible. God makes the impossible possible. God makes the impossible possible. Mountains fall, seas part, chains break, not by might, not by power, but by the voice of faith raised in defiance of despair. Your declaration is the key. Your faith is the door. Open it wide and step into the impossible. In the quiet chambers of the soul, where doubt often takes residence and fear whispers in the shadows, there is a greater truth waiting to be uncovered, a truth that defies the logic of the world and stretches beyond the reach of human reason. It is the sacred heartbeat of hope, the lifeblood of resurrection, the unwavering certainty that even when everything seems lost, God's hand is still at work. This is not a fragile hope, but a roaring flame, an unbreakable covenant etched into the very fabric of existence. It says, "No darkness is so deep, no night so long, that it can extinguish the light God ignites within." When your world crumbles, when the winds of despair tear at your foundation, remember that the earth itself was once chaos, formless, void, and dark. Yet from that chaos, order was born. From the void, life sprang forth. God spoke, and the chaos trembled. The same voice that called light into the darkness still echoes through the chambers of your heart. It is a voice that commands mountains to move, storms to cease, and broken spirits to rise. The question is not whether the storm will rage, but how you will stand in the tempest. Will you be like the grass, bending with the wind until you break? Or will you be like the mighty oak, rooted deep in the soil of faith, unyielding even when the storm shouts its fury? This choice is not made once, but every day, every moment. It is the heartbeat of resilience, the rhythm of a soul unshaken. God's promises are not wrapped in gold and silk, but forged in the fires of trial. The path to victory is paved with struggle, the canvas of triumph painted in strokes of suffering. Yet within the suffering, there is a secret seed, a seed that, when nurtured with faith, blooms into a harvest of strength, courage, and grace. Every tear that falls waters this seed, every heartache feeds it. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. It is the brave refusal to let despair dictate your destiny. When you feel like you have nothing left, faith whispers, "Hold on, the dawn is closer than you think." It is a lifeline thrown across the abyss, a rope of light pulling you from the depths of hopelessness. God's work is always silent before it becomes loud. The roots grow deep in the dark soil before the tree breaks through the surface. So often, what looks like waiting is actually working, a hidden movement of grace and power beneath the surface. Trust this unseen work. Trust the quiet moments where nothing seems to change, for in those moments, God is weaving miracles. When doubt rises, remember the stories of old, of those who faced giants and found their strength not in their own might, but in the power of God. David with a sling, Moses with a staff, the disciples with trembling hearts. None had the strength, yet all were made mighty by the hand of God. Their faith was the key that unlocked heaven's door, the bridge over impossible waters. Your story is no different. You are called to be a modern-day warrior of faith, standing firm when the world shakes. The impossible is your battlefield, and faith is your sword. Swing it boldly, cut through the lies of fear and defeat. Declare that no mountain, no storm, no trial can withstand the power of God working in you. It is easy to be discouraged by what you see with your eyes, the bills, the broken relationships, the failures, the pain, but faith sees beyond the visible. It reaches into the invisible realm where God's power reigns supreme. It sees the promise behind the problem, the victory beyond the valley, the sunrise after the longest night. Faith invites you to walk by sight no longer, but by the unshakable conviction that God is with you. This is not wishful thinking, but divine assurance. It is a reality rooted in the character of a God who does not fail, who does not forget, who does not abandon. When you feel alone, you are not. When you feel weak, you are made strong. When you feel broken, you are being restored. Let this truth soak into your soul. Your weakness is the stage for God's strength. Your brokenness is the canvas for His masterpiece. The cracks in your heart are the very places where His light shines brightest. This is the paradox of faith. When you are least, God is most. So rise. Rise above the noise of doubt and fear. Rise with the courage of one who knows the battle is already won. The impossible is not your prison, it is your platform. Your faith is not a flicker, it is a flame that will not be extinguished. Step forward into the unknown with confidence. You are not walking alone. The Creator of the universe walks beside you, His hand steadying yours, His voice guiding your steps. The mountain before you may be steep, but your God is steeper still, higher, mightier, unshakable. Faith does not guarantee a smooth journey, but it guarantees a victorious end. It is the compass that directs you through the darkest valleys, and the beacon that shines brightest when the night is at its blackest. Hold fast to this, cling to it like your very life depends on it, because it does. And remember this, no matter how vast the mountain, the God who commands the stars commands your mountain. No matter how fierce the storm, the God who calms the seas calms your storm. No matter how deep the valley, the God who walks with you is deeper still, closer still, stronger still. Faith is your sword, your shield, your anthem. It is the unshakable declaration that you are more than conquerors, not by your strength, but by His. The impossible bows before the faith that dares to believe, that dares to hope, that dares to live with the courage of the Almighty on its side. Stand firm, speak life, walk boldly. The impossible is not the end, it is the beginning. The weight of despair is a silent thief that steals the breath and steals the light from weary hearts. Yet beneath that weight lies a deeper truth, the truth that every soul was created to soar beyond its struggles, to rise on wings of hope forged in the fires of adversity. Pain is not the enemy, it is the forge, the crucible where character is shaped, where faith is tested, and where the spirit is tempered. What breaks you is not what defines you. What defines you is what you become when you refuse to be broken. You were never made to live in the shadow of fear or despair. There is a flame within you, a spark of divine fire that no storm can quench. This fire burns not because life is easy, but because your Creator is relentless in His pursuit of your breakthrough. Like a sculptor with his chisel, God chips away the rough edges, revealing the masterpiece beneath. Every hardship is a stroke of that chisel, every tear a cleansing rain, every trial a deliberate shaping of your destiny. In the darkest nights, when hope feels like a distant star barely flickering, hold fast to the promise that light always follows darkness. It is not the absence of darkness that defines the dawn, but the relentless emergence of light breaking through. The sun does not ask permission to rise. It simply bursts forth, scattering shadows with an unstoppable brilliance. So must your hope rise, with equal fury and determination. Do not let the wounds of your past define the limits of your future. The scars you carry are not chains, they are medals of honor, testaments to your survival and your strength. They speak not of defeat, but of victory. Victory over the pain, over the betrayal, over the moments when giving up seemed easier. These scars are the roadmap of a soul that refused to stay down, that fought through the night and chose to live. Faith is the bridge between where you are and where God is leading you. It is the unseen pathway carved by trust, by obedience, by surrender. You cannot see the entire journey, but you can take the next step. One foot forward, then another, propelled not by certainty, but by belief. The road may twist, it may turn, but every step is a step closer to the purpose God has set before you. When your heart is heavy and your spirit weary, remember the story of those who walked before you, those who faced impossible odds and found strength not in themselves, but in the promise of a faithful God. They did not have all the answers, but they had enough faith to keep moving, and their footsteps echo through the corridors of time, a testament that no journey is too long, no burden too heavy, when carried in the arms of the divine. The enemy will try to convince you that your dreams are too big, your pain too deep, your failures too many. But these lies are shadows without substance. God's love is the sun that burns them away. You are not a mistake. You are not forgotten. You are not too broken to be healed or too lost to be found. You are the beloved, created for purpose, destined for glory. Let your soul be like a river, flowing, moving, never stagnant. The river carves valleys, shapes mountains, nourishes life wherever it goes. Your faith should move with that same unstoppable force. When obstacles arise, they do not stop the river. They redirect it, teach it new ways to flow, new ways to break through. Your faith must be relentless, adaptable, and fierce. In moments of doubt, when the noise of the world grows loud and the voices of fear scream inside your head, quiet yourself. Go inward. Find the still place where God speaks in whispers of peace and assurance. It is there in the silence that the true power of faith is born, not in the thunderous applause of success, but in the quiet surrender to God's will. You are not alone in your struggle. There is a host of unseen allies, angels, saints, and the cloud of witnesses cheering you on, standing guard, interceding. The battle is real, but so is the army of heaven standing beside you. Your faith is the banner under which you march. Raise it high and know that victory is already written. To live by faith is to embrace uncertainty with courage. It is to walk a path not fully seen but fully trusted. It is to believe that the unseen is more real than the seen, that God's promises are the bedrock beneath shifting sands. Your faith is the foundation that will hold when every other support crumbles. No storm lasts forever. No night remains unbroken. The sun will rise again, and with it new strength, new hope, new life. Trust in that cycle. Trust in that promise. You are not defined by what breaks you, but by what rebuilds you. Your story is still being written, and the best chapters are yet to come. Embrace the struggle as part of your divine narrative. Let your heart swell with the knowledge that God is not distant, not detached, but present, walking with you through the fire, guiding you through the wilderness, lifting you from the depths. His love is the compass that points you home, the anchor that keeps you steady in the raging sea. In the end, your faith is the song that will outlast the silence, the light that will overcome the darkness, the hope that will conquer despair. It is the echo of eternity ringing through your life, the heartbeat of heaven beating within you. Stand strong, move forward. Let your faith be fierce, unyielding, and radiant. The journey is hard, but the destination is glorious. The impossible is yours to claim, not because it is easy, but because God's power is made perfect in your weakness. Rise, beloved, rise with the fire of heaven in your soul and the unshakable certainty that you are destined for more. The world may try to hold you down, but faith lifts you higher, always higher. The heart's journey is never without moments of fracture, moments when hope seems fragile and the soul feels stripped bare. Yet within this vulnerability lies a secret power, a sacred strength that comes not from armor, but from openness, not from denial, but from the raw embrace of truth. To be broken is not to be defeated. It is to be made ready, like the earth before the seed, like the clay before the potter's hand shapes it into something beautiful and useful. There is a profound beauty in brokenness, a divine paradox that teaches us more than victory ever could. For in the cracks and fissures, light seeps in, light that illuminates our weaknesses, exposes our need, and draws us nearer to the heart of God. It is there, in the broken places, that grace finds its richest soil and faith grows deepest roots. When we admit our fragility, we make room for the infinite strength of God to move through us. We live in a world that prizes strength and success, that fears weakness and failure, but true strength is not found in the absence of struggle, it is born through it. It is the endurance that rises when everything inside screams to give up. It is the courage to say, "I will try again," when the path looks too steep. The soul that refuses to be crushed by circumstance is the soul that will change the world. This is the call to vulnerability, to step into the light with all your wounds visible, knowing that they do not define you, but refine you. To share your story not as a tale of shame or defeat, but as a testament to the relentless love that carried you through. When you expose your brokenness, you break the power of shame, you invite healing, and you become a beacon of hope for others who walk the same dark road. God's heart beats strongest for the broken, the lost, the weary. His arms reach widest for those who stumble and fall, offering not condemnation but redemption. There is no place too far gone, no soul too damaged, no past too heavy to be lifted by His grace. When you surrender your broken pieces to Him, He makes them whole, weaving them into a tapestry of beauty that tells a story only He could craft. Consider the shattered fragments of a vase, once whole but now broken beyond recognition. The world sees only the brokenness, the loss. But in the hands of the divine potter, those fragments are gathered and fused with gold, creating a new masterpiece, a work of art more precious for its scars. This is the art of redemption, the miracle of restoration. Your brokenness is not your end. It is the beginning of something greater. Let this truth settle deep into your bones. Your scars are not a sign of failure, but of survival. They are the marks of a warrior who has faced the battle and refused to be defeated. Each crack in your heart is a doorway through which God's love can flood in, healing, renewing, transforming. Do not hide your scars. Let them shine as proof that you have been refined by fire, and that you now carry the fire of hope within you. The journey of healing is not linear. There will be days when the old wounds ache, when the memories sting sharp like fresh pain, but do not despair. Healing is a process of becoming, a daily surrender to grace that works patiently over time. Like a river smoothing rough stones, the gentle current of God's love shapes your heart into something stronger, softer, and more beautiful than you could imagine. In brokenness, there is clarity. The illusions of control fall away, revealing the truth that life is not about mastering every circumstance, but about mastering the art of surrender. It is in surrender that we find freedom, the freedom to trust a power greater than ourselves, the freedom to rest in the assurance that we are held no matter how fierce the storm. Do not fear the cracks. They are not failures, but invitations to greater intimacy with the divine. When you feel the sharp edges of your pain, remember that God's love is the balm that smooths those edges, the fire that burns away the hurt, the light that makes all things new. Your brokenness is the doorway to grace, and grace is the doorway to new life. In this sacred place of vulnerability, your soul is made strong. You discover that strength is not the absence of weakness, but the courage to keep going despite it. It is the resilience to face another day, the determination to love when it hurts, the faith to believe in the unseen promise of healing and restoration. You were never meant to carry your brokenness alone. God invites you to lay it down at His feet, to trust Him with the fragments of your heart. He will gather them piece by piece and create from your shattered past a future filled with hope. This is the power of the divine healer, the God who specializes in making beauty from ashes. So stand tall in your brokenness. Wear your scars like armor forged in the fires of grace. Let your story be a light that guides others out of their darkness, a song of hope that rises from the depths of despair. For in brokenness, you are not diminished. You are made more deeply human, more deeply connected to the divine, and more powerfully alive. In the end, it is not our perfection, but our perseverance that honors God. It is not the smoothness of the road, but the faithfulness of the traveler that matters. Your brokenness is the bridge that leads you to wholeness. Embrace it. Welcome it. Let it transform you from the inside out. The God who calls you by name is the same God who heals your wounds, who lights your path, who breathes new life into your soul. Trust Him. Lean into His love. And watch as your brokenness becomes the foundation of a life marked not by pain, but by triumph. There is a power in faith that defies reason, a force that moves mountains not by might, but by quiet conviction. Faith is the seed planted deep in the soil of our hearts, invisible yet alive, waiting patiently for the right moment to break through the hardest ground. It is the whisper in the dark, the hand that reaches out when all others withdraw, the anchor that holds steady in the fiercest storms. Faith is not a blind leap, but a deliberate choice to believe in what cannot yet be seen, to trust in a promise beyond the horizon of human understanding. In a world that demands proof and certainty, faith stands as a rebellious act of courage. It dares to say, I will trust, even when the path is shrouded in shadows. It is the voice that refuses to be silenced by doubt, the flame that flickers stubbornly despite the wind. To have faith is to walk without knowing every step, to lean into the invisible hand that guides us through the unknown. It is the strength that sustains the weary, the light that pierces the darkest night. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. It acknowledges the trembling within, but chooses to move forward anyway. Like a child stepping into their parents' arms in the midst of a storm, faith rests in the assurance that they are held, safe, and unshaken. This assurance does not erase struggle or pain, but it changes the story, transforming fear into hope, despair into expectation. The story of faith is written in every page of human history, carried by those who dared to believe beyond their circumstances. It is found in the ancient Psalms that cry out from the depths of brokenness, in the prayers whispered in the stillness of night, in the footsteps of countless souls who refuse to let go of God's promises. Their lives echo the truth that faith is the bridge between what is and what can be, between the present struggle and the future glory. Faith asks us to trust not in what we see, but in who we know. It calls us to fix our eyes on the character of God, the one who is unchanging, faithful, and true. In this knowing, doubt loses its grip. When storms rage and the ground shakes beneath us, faith anchors us in the eternal. It reminds us that even when the world is falling apart, God remains the solid rock beneath our feet. This kind of faith does not grow in isolation. It is nurtured in the community of believers, strengthened by shared stories of God's faithfulness. When we gather with others who have faced similar battles and emerge stronger, our faith ignites and multiplies. We become witnesses to each other's courage, each other's miracles, each other's prayers, answered in ways that defy explanation. Together, faith becomes a flame that no wind can extinguish. Faith is also a journey of learning to listen, to discern the quiet whispers of God's voice amid the noise of the world. It is the willingness to wait, even when the answers seem delayed. The space between prayer and fulfillment is where faith matures, where trust is refined like gold in the fire. Patience is the companion of faith, teaching us that God's timing is perfect, even when it feels slow. The measure of faith is not the size of the miracle it produces, but the depth of trust it reveals. Sometimes faith looks like a simple yes whispered in the heart, a surrender that refuses to be shaken by circumstance. It is the confidence that God is working all things for good, even when we cannot see it. This quiet trust is a revolution in a world desperate for control and certainty. Faith transforms our perspective on suffering. It does not promise a life without pain, but offers a purpose within it. Through faith, suffering becomes a refining fire, a place where our character is shaped and our hope is strengthened. It teaches us to look beyond the immediate and to hold fast to the eternal. In this perspective, no trial is wasted. Every hardship becomes a stepping stone toward greater resilience and deeper understanding. The power of faith is also revealed in its fruit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the marks of a life transformed, the evidence of a soul anchored in God's truth. Faith that works in love becomes a force that changes lives, heals wounds, and breaks chains. It is the catalyst for miracles, not always visible but profoundly felt in the hearts of those touched. To live by faith is to live boldly. It means stepping into the unknown with courage, speaking words of hope when despair threatens to silence you, extending kindness when the world offers cruelty. It is the refusal to settle for less than the abundant life promised by God, a life filled with purpose, meaning, and unshakable peace. Faith opens doors where there were only walls, lights paths in the darkest valleys, and breathes life into dry bones. This faith is not a fleeting feeling or a momentary spark, but a steady flame that burns through every season of life. It sustains us in moments of joy and anchors us in times of sorrow. It carries us over mountains and through valleys, never failing, never fading. It is the heartbeat of the believer, the soul's rhythm tuned to the eternal song of God's love. So hold fast to your faith. Guard it fiercely, nurture it daily, and let it be the foundation upon which you build your life. When doubt whispers lies, let faith roar louder. When the night feels long, let faith be your dawn. When the weight of the world threatens to crush you, let faith lift you higher than you ever thought possible. For in faith we find the courage to face tomorrow, the strength to overcome today, and the hope that sustains us forever. It is the gift that God gives to those who seek Him, the treasure that outlasts all earthly wealth. Faith is the bridge that carries us from despair to hope, from brokenness to wholeness, from death to life. Let your faith be more than belief. Let it be a living force that moves you to action, that challenges the darkness, that breathes hope into the weary. Let it be the light that shines in your eyes, the song that rises from your soul, the testimony of a heart anchored in the eternal. The God who calls you to faith is the same God who will never leave you, never forsake you, and never fail you. Trust Him with all your heart. Lean on Him with all your strength. Walk with Him every step of the way. And watch as faith transforms your life into a story of courage, hope, and unstoppable grace. The human heart is a battlefield, a place where light and darkness wage war beneath the surface of every smile, every word, every choice. It is in this secret place that the battle for our souls is fought, where every hope and every fear collide. Yet it is also the sanctuary where grace dwells, where God's presence reaches deep into the cracks of our brokenness to heal, restore, and renew. The heart is not merely a pump of life's blood, it is the throne of our deepest longings, the wellspring of love, the crucible where faith is tested and forged. To surrender the heart to God is to invite the divine into the most vulnerable chambers of our being. It is an act of radical trust, a laying down of arms in the midst of conflict, a willingness to let the Maker remake us. This surrender is not weakness. It is strength refined by humility. It means stepping into the light of truth. Even when it exposes the shadows we hide from ourselves and others. It is the willingness to face the rawness of our own humanity, knowing that God's love is stronger than our failures. Within the heart lies the capacity to forgive, a power both terrifying and liberating. Forgiveness is not the denial of pain or injustice. It is the choice to break the chains of bitterness and rage that bind us. It is the door to freedom, the path to peace. To forgive is to release the prisoner and discover that the prisoner was ourselves. It is the act that transforms wounds into wisdom, scars into strength, and hatred into healing. When we forgive, we participate in the divine work of reconciliation, mirroring God's own grace toward us. But the heart is not meant to remain closed. It is designed for connection, for love that reaches beyond the self to embrace others in their brokenness and beauty. To open the heart is to step into vulnerability, risking pain for the possibility of deep relationship. It is to choose empathy over judgment, compassion over condemnation. Love demands this openness, this willingness to be seen and to see, to give and to receive without reservation. In the midst of a fractured world, the heart holds the hope of restoration. It is the fertile ground from which compassion grows, the seedbed of justice and mercy. When hearts awaken to God's call, they become engines of change, turning sorrow into service, despair into determination. The heart that beats with God's love cannot remain indifferent to suffering or injustice. It becomes a vessel of healing, a beacon for the lost, a refuge for the weary. Yet the heart's journey is not without struggle. It wrestles with fear, pride, and doubt. It carries the scars of past betrayals and the weight of present anxieties. But these trials do not define the heart's destiny. Instead, they are the refining fires that shape its resilience and deepen its capacity to love. The heart that perseveres is a heart transformed, stronger, wiser, and more radiant for the battles it has endured. To guard the heart is to protect the wellspring of life itself. Proverbs warns us to guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. This guarding is not about building walls, but about choosing what enters and influences the soul. It means nurturing thoughts of hope and truth, rejecting bitterness and fear. It is a daily act of stewardship, a conscious decision to cultivate what is good, pure, and life-giving. In this sacred vigilance, prayer becomes the heart's lifeline, a direct line to the source of all peace and strength. Through prayer, the heart finds rest in God's presence, courage to face the unknown, and clarity amid confusion. Prayer is not merely asking for answers, but listening, surrendering, and aligning with God's will. It is the heartbeat of a soul in communion, the language of love spoken in silence. The heart's capacity for joy is boundless when rooted in God. True joy transcends circumstances. It is not the fleeting happiness of fleeting moments, but a deep, abiding gladness that anchors the soul. This joy is a rebellion against despair, a declaration that life, even with its sorrows, is infused with meaning and beauty. It springs from the knowledge that we are held by a love that nothing can separate us from. When the heart is aligned with God, it becomes a wellspring of hope. This hope is not wishful thinking, but a confident expectation rooted in the promises of the divine. It looks beyond the immediate struggles to the ultimate restoration of all things. Hope is the light that shines in the darkness, the quiet assurance that God's love will prevail. It fuels perseverance and inspires courage in the face of adversity. The heart that is alive to God's presence beats with passion for justice. It cannot ignore the cries of the oppressed or the suffering of the marginalized. Compassion moves it to action, transforming faith from mere words into deeds. This heart sees the face of God in the stranger, the broken, the forgotten. It stands as an advocate for the voiceless and a defender of the weak, embodying the very love it has received. But the journey of the heart is a pilgrimage, not a destination. It is a continual opening and surrendering, a daily choice to walk in love, grace, and truth. Each day offers a new opportunity to lay down burdens, to forgive, to love more deeply. The heart grows not by avoiding pain, but by embracing it with faith, by allowing God's light to shine into every shadow. In the quiet moments when the world fades and only the heart remains, there God meets us, tenderly, relentlessly, lovingly. There in the secret place, the heart is made whole. It is healed from wounds we thought would never mend, restored from places of brokenness, and filled anew with the Spirit's power. This is the heart's true home, the sanctuary where divine love dwells and life flows freely. So do not be afraid to bring your heart to God, every fear, every failure, every secret longing. Bring it without pretense or reservation, knowing that it is safe in His hands. Allow Him to shape it, mold it, and fill it with the love that conquers all. For the heart that belongs to God is a heart that will never be forsaken, never be alone, and never be defeated. Walk this path with courage, with trust, with the confidence that the God who created your heart knows its every beat. He who fashioned you from dust and breathed into you the breath of life is the same God who delights in your surrender. Let your heart be His dwelling place, a temple of peace and power, a fountain of grace that overflows into every corner of your life. In this surrender, find your true strength. In this opening, discover your true freedom. In this love, embrace your true identity as a child of the Most High, cherished beyond measure, chosen for a purpose greater than you can imagine. Life presses upon us with relentless force, like waves crashing against a fragile shore. We stand vulnerable, buffeted by storms that test the very foundation of our souls. Yet, it is precisely in these moments of turbulence that the soul's true metal is revealed. Adversity is not the enemy, it is the forge where character is tempered, where faith is not simply spoken but lived. When the winds howl and the skies darken, there lies a profound invitation to lean not into fear or despair, but into a greater strength. A strength that flows not from our own reserves, but from a source eternal and unshakable. To endure is not merely to survive the storm, but to be transformed by it. It is to emerge not hardened and bitter, but softened and wise, with a heart expanded by grace. The trials we face carve out space within us for God to dwell more fully. Pain, loss, disappointment, these are not signs of abandonment, but invitations to deeper intimacy with the divine. They strip away the illusions of control and self-sufficiency, revealing the naked truth that we are fragile vessels made strong only by the power of love beyond ourselves. In the face of suffering, we are called to embrace a paradox, to find strength in weakness, hope in despair, and light in the darkness. This is no easy journey. It demands that we release the illusion of perfect control and step into a faith that trusts when we cannot see, that hopes when all seems lost. This faith does not deny reality, it embraces it with courage and confidence, anchored in the knowledge that God's presence never fails, even when the night feels endless. The story of faith is written in the lives of those who refuse to be defeated by their circumstances. They are the ones who, with trembling hands and hopeful hearts, chose to believe in a love that conquers death, a power that redeems every shattered piece of their lives. Their witness whispers to us across time and space, "Hold on, there is more beyond this moment." There is a light that will not be extinguished. Hope is the compass that guides the soul through the wilderness. It is the quiet voice that whispers, "This is not the end." When all else is stripped away, hope remains, a tether to the divine promise that suffering is not final, that joy will come with the morning. Hope carries us through the night, a steady flame that refuses to be snuffed out by the winds of circumstance. It is the courage to believe in what cannot yet be seen, the assurance that God's purposes are unfolding even when hidden from view. In this hope, there is power to forgive, both others and ourselves. Forgiveness is not a concession to weakness, but a declaration of freedom. It breaks the chains that bind us to the past, freeing our hearts to move forward. It is an act of courage that chooses healing over bitterness, restoration over revenge. Forgiveness allows us to release the burdens that weigh heavy on our souls and opens the door to peace that surpasses understanding. But forgiveness is only the beginning. From its wellspring flows compassion, the heart's response to the suffering around us. Compassion compels us beyond mere sympathy into action. It awakens us to the shared humanity of all people, their joys and their sorrows, their struggles and their dreams. It moves us to stand with the oppressed, to speak for the voiceless, to embody the love we have received. Compassion transforms faith from a private comfort into a public force for change. Faith that does not move beyond the self becomes stagnant, a cage rather than a key. True faith bursts forth like a river, carving paths through the desert of isolation and despair. It calls us into community, into a fellowship that strengthens, encourages, and holds us accountable. The journey of faith is never meant to be walked alone. We are woven together as a tapestry of grace, each thread essential, each story valuable. In this communal life, grace is both given and received. It is the oxygen that sustains us when we falter, the balm that heals wounds inflicted by failure and disappointment. Grace is not earned. It is the free gift of God's unfailing love, poured out lavishly even when we feel unworthy. To live in grace is to live in freedom, released from the crushing weight of condemnation and shame. Yet grace calls us also to responsibility. It invites us to reflect God's love in the world by living lives marked by integrity, humility, and service. To embody grace is to be a beacon of hope in a world often cloaked in despair. It means acting justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with God even when the path is difficult. It is the sacred duty of those who have tasted mercy to extend it generously to others. The journey of faith is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires endurance, patience, and perseverance. There will be moments of doubt, days when the soul feels weary, and nights when the shadows seem to close in. But in these times, we are reminded that God's faithfulness never wavers. Like the dawn that follows the darkest hour, God's mercy is renewed each morning, offering fresh hope and strength. Every step taken in faith is a victory over fear. Each act of trust pushes back the darkness a little more. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the courage to move forward despite it. It is the choice to believe that love is stronger than hate, that light will overcome darkness, that life will triumph over death. This faith empowers us to live with purpose. It gives meaning to our struggles and direction to our dreams. It anchors us in the truth that we are not accidents or afterthoughts, but beloved children of a Creator who knows us intimately and calls us by name. This knowledge fuels our courage to step into the unknown, to embrace the call to serve, to live boldly for what is good and true. The trials we face are not signs that God has abandoned us, but opportunities for deeper transformation. Each difficulty is a stepping stone on the path toward becoming more fully who we were created to be. Through suffering, faith matures. Through endurance, hope strengthens. Through love, the soul is renewed. So stand firm when the storms come. Let your soul be anchored in the unchanging love of God. Let hope be the light that guides you through the darkest nights. Let forgiveness heal your wounds and compassion expand your heart. Let grace sustain you when you falter, and let faith be the compass that leads you home. In this journey, know that you are never alone. The God who formed the stars and breathed life into dust walks beside you, carrying you when you cannot walk alone, lifting you when you stumble. His love surrounds you, His promises hold you, and His peace guards your heart. This is the strength that endures. This is the hope that never fades. This is the faith that conquers all. The soul hungers for meaning, something beyond the fleeting, the superficial, the momentary distractions that so often consume our days. Beneath the noise of the world, beneath the relentless rush of tasks and obligations, there is a quiet cry, a deep, primal yearning for purpose. This longing is not accidental, it is the echo of the divine breath that first gave us life. To ignore this hunger is to live fragmented, untethered from the essence of our being. To answer it is to step into the fullness of who we are created to be. Purpose is not found in achievements or possessions, nor in the applause of others. It is found in alignment with the sacred heartbeat of creation, in the deliberate choice to live according to the truth that lies beneath all things. This truth calls us to a higher way of living, one marked by love that does not waver, by justice that seeks the oppressed, by mercy extended to the broken. When our lives are rooted in this truth, every act gains significance, every moment is charged with eternal weight. The journey to discover purpose begins with stillness, a sacred pause amid the chaos. It is in the silence where the soul's true voice is heard, where the distractions fall away and the light of God's presence reveals the path. This stillness requires courage, for it means confronting the fears and doubts that have hidden themselves in the shadows. It means surrendering control, admitting that we do not have all the answers, and opening our hearts to a wisdom greater than our own. Purpose reveals itself not as a distant destination, but as a daily choice, a step taken in faith. It is found in the small acts of kindness that ripple outward like waves, in the willingness to listen when no one else will, in the courage to speak truth in a world that prefers silence. Purpose is not a grand achievement, but a way of being, a life lived fully, authentically, aligned with the call of the divine. To live with purpose is to embrace vulnerability. It means acknowledging our limitations and imperfections and yet daring to love and serve anyway. It is to risk rejection and failure for the sake of something greater. Purpose strips away pretense and pride, inviting us into humility, the fertile soil where true greatness grows. In humility, we find freedom from the chains of ego and the illusions of self-sufficiency, and we open ourselves to the transformative power of grace. This grace is both the source and the sustainer of purpose. It fills the gaps where our strength falters and our courage wanes. It breathes new life into weary hearts and ignites passion where doubt had taken hold. Grace is the divine fire that fuels the journey, the steady flame that burns bright even in the darkest valleys. It reminds us that our worth is not measured by what we do, but by who we are, beloved children held forever in God's embrace. Purpose is also a call to community, a summons to step beyond the self and into the shared story of humanity. We are woven together in a tapestry of grace and struggle, each thread vital, each life a reflection of the whole. Our purpose unfolds not in isolation, but in relationship with God, with one another, and with all creation. In this interconnectedness, we find strength and encouragement, and the courage to persevere. In the face of brokenness, both personal and global, purpose becomes a beacon of hope. It challenges the despair that threatens to consume us and calls us to be agents of healing and restoration. To live purposefully is to embody the vision of a world made new, where justice flows like a river and peace covers the earth like a mantle. It is to live in the tension of what is and what will be, holding fast to the promise that love will ultimately triumph over hate. Yet purpose demands sacrifice. It calls us to give up the easy and comfortable, to walk paths that are often lonely and fraught with difficulty. It asks us to surrender our agendas and open ourselves to the unexpected movement of God's Spirit. This surrender is not defeat, but victory. Victory over the fear that seeks to imprison us, over the doubt that tries to silence our dreams. To embrace purpose fully is to live awake, to be fully present in each moment, to engage with the world not as spectators, but as participants in the sacred dance of life. It is to see the divine spark in every person we encounter, to recognize the holy in the ordinary, to celebrate the miracle of existence itself. This awareness transforms even the mundane into a holy encounter, a chance to reflect God's love and glory. Purpose is ultimately a gift, one that is discovered, not manufactured, received, not earned. It unfolds in the mysterious interplay of divine invitation and human response. It is a journey without maps, guided by the light of faith and the whispers of the Spirit. It requires trust, a trust that God's plans for us are good, even when the road is uncertain and the destination unseen. In living purposefully, we bear witness to the eternal truth that our lives matter. Each of us, with our unique gifts and stories, contributes to the unfolding story of redemption. No act of love, no gesture of kindness, no moment of courage is ever wasted. Together, these moments build a legacy of hope that echoes beyond our years. So let the hunger for meaning lead you deeper. Let it awaken the courage to seek, to question, to listen. Let it break open the prisons of complacency and fear. Step boldly into the mystery of purpose, knowing that you are held by a love that will never let go. This is the call that shapes the soul, the fire that ignites the spirit, the path that leads to life abundant and true. In the pursuit of purpose, we find not only ourselves, but the God who fashioned us in love and calls us home. It is here, in this sacred alignment, that life sings its fullest song, a melody of grace, hope, and everlasting joy. The heart's most profound struggle is often invisible, a battle fought in silence beneath the surface of smiles and strength. It is the struggle against despair, that heavy fog that dulls the light of hope and chokes the breath of joy. Despair is the thief of dreams, the shadow that creeps into the corners of our minds and whispers that all is lost, that our lives are without meaning, that God is distant or absent. But despair's a lie, one that calls us to resist with every fiber of our being. To face despair is to stand at the edge of the abyss and refuse to look down. It means acknowledging the pain that threatens to overwhelm us without letting it define us. It is to hold fast to the fragile flicker of hope, even when the night feels unending. This fight is not won by sheer willpower, but by surrender, by laying down our burdens and letting the light of grace seep into the darkest places of our hearts. In the midst of despair, God's presence is not absent but closest. Like a gentle whisper beneath the storm, like the steady hand that steadies the trembling, God walks with us through the valley. This presence does not erase suffering, but transforms it, weaving it into a tapestry of resilience and beauty. It is a presence that does not promise ease, but promises that we will never walk alone. Hope, then, is an act of defiance. It is the courageous refusal to accept the finality of darkness. It is a spark that refuses to be extinguished by the winds of doubt and fear. Hope insists that beyond the brokenness, beyond the pain, there is healing and renewal. It calls us to look beyond what is seen to the unseen realities of God's kingdom, a realm where love reigns, where justice is restored, where tears are wiped away. Hope anchors the soul, giving it a steady footing amid the shifting sands of circumstance. It is not blind optimism, but a rooted confidence in the faithfulness of God. It is the song of the Spirit that rises even when the body is weary, the light that shines even when shadows deepen. Hope is the lifeline that pulls us from the depths and sets our feet on solid ground. This hope shapes how we live. It frees us from despair's paralysis and fuels a life of action and compassion. It moves us to stand with the brokenhearted, to speak for the voiceless, to bring healing where there is hurt. It turns grief into purpose, pain into passion, loss into love. Through hope, our suffering becomes a sacred offering, a testimony to the power of God to redeem even the darkest moments. Hope also invites us into patience, a waiting that is not passive but active. It is a waiting that trusts in God's timing, that holds on through seasons of silence and uncertainty. Patience deepens our faith, teaching us that growth and transformation often come slowly. Like the unfolding of a seed beneath the soil, it reminds us that God's work in us and through us is ongoing and faithful, even when invisible. To nurture hope is to cultivate a heart that looks upward and outward, upward to the source of life and strength, outward to the world in need. It is to refuse the temptation of isolation and despair, to reach toward others with hands ready to heal and hearts ready to love. Hope makes us community, binding us together in shared resilience and purpose. But hope is not only for others, it is for ourselves as well. We are called to hope for our own healing, for the renewal of our spirits, for the unfolding of God's plan in our lives. We are invited to hope beyond our failures and fears, to believe that no mistake or brokenness is beyond the reach of grace. Hope empowers us to step forward even when the path is unclear, trusting that God is guiding every step. This hope is a light that grows stronger as it is shared. It radiates from lives transformed, from stories of redemption told in the quiet moments of courage and faith. It is the legacy we leave, a testimony that even in the darkest night, dawn will break. This light invites others to step out of despair and into the embrace of a God who never abandons. The struggle with despair and the cultivation of hope is the spiritual warfare of our age. It is the battle between the lies that seek to drown us and the truth that sets us free. We fight not with swords, but with prayer, with love, with acts of kindness that proclaim a different reality, a reality where God's kingdom comes, where sorrow is turned to joy, where death is swallowed by life. In this battle, we are not alone. Countless generations have walked this path, their faith a cloud of witnesses encouraging us to persevere. Their stories remind us that hope is stronger than despair, that light pierces even the deepest darkness. We join a great chorus of voices declaring that no matter how fierce the storm, God's love is fiercer still. So when despair threatens to claim your heart, reach deeper for hope. Let it be your armor, your shield, your sword. Hold fast to the promises of God. Let them anchor your soul in the storms. And know that in every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt, God's grace is at work, transforming, healing, redeeming. Hope is the voice that calls us to rise, the flame that refuses to die, the song that sings through the silence. It is the unshakable truth that beyond the night, beyond the sorrow, dawn awaits. And with that dawn comes new life, new strength, new purpose, a life lived in the radiant light of God's everlasting love. Life's true measure is not found in the trophies we collect or the fleeting applause of the world, but in the quiet depth of character forged through trials and triumphs alike. Character is the invisible architecture of the soul, built brick by brick in moments unseen and uncelebrated. It is the foundation upon which every choice rests, the silent witness to who we are when no one watches. In a world obsessed with appearances and achievements, the cultivation of character is a radical act. It demands that we look beyond the surface, beyond the easy masks we wear, and confront the raw truth of ourselves. Character is born in the crucible of challenge, tempered by the fire of adversity, and polished by the consistent choices we make to act with integrity, courage, and humility. True character reveals itself not in comfort, but in discomfort. It is the strength to stand firm when pressures mount, the grace to remain humble when success comes, and the courage to admit failure without losing hope. Character is the quiet voice that urges us to do what is right, even when it is difficult or costly. It is the steadfast heart that refuses to be swayed by the shifting tides of popular opinion or the fleeting temptations of ease. This inner strength is a gift, one that must be nurtured with care. Like a garden that requires tending, character grows through discipline and self-reflection. It flourishes when we cultivate virtues such as patience, kindness, and honesty, and when we confront our flaws with courage rather than denial. Character is not static. It is a living, breathing part of us that can always deepen, expand, and mature. The journey towards strong character is often solitary, marked by moments of inner wrestling where we choose who we will become. It requires us to embrace vulnerability, to admit our weaknesses, and to seek help when needed. It asks us to lay aside pride and embrace a posture of learning and growth. In doing so, we align ourselves with the divine pattern, the model of Christ, whose humility and love define true greatness. Character shapes not only how we see ourselves, but how we impact the world. It colors every relationship, every decision, every act of service. When rooted in faith, character becomes a beacon that draws others toward hope and healing. It is the light that shines in the darkness, the steady hand that guides through confusion, the gentle voice that offers encouragement. But the development of character is not an individualistic pursuit. It is forged in community. Our interactions with others reveal and refine who we are. Accountability, forgiveness, and compassion within relationships serve as mirrors and touchstones. Through the trials and joys shared with others, our character is both tested and strengthened, shaped by love and grace. In moments of failure, character offers redemption. It is the soil where repentance takes root and new growth emerges. Failure is not the end, but a fertile ground for transformation, a chance to learn humility and resilience. Character embraces this process, refusing to be defined by mistakes, but instead shaped by the lessons they bring. The cultivation of character demands courage to confront ourselves honestly and to choose integrity in the face of temptation. It calls us to live authentically, to embody the values we profess, and to be consistent in word and deed. This courage is born from faith, a faith that assures us of God's steadfast presence and grace even when we stumble. Ultimately, character is the legacy we leave behind. It is the mark on the hearts of those we touch, the quiet echo of a life well lived. It is the true measure of success, not counted in wealth or status, but in love given, lives lifted, and truth lived. A life of character is a life aligned with the divine purpose, a life that honors the sacred trust placed within us. So let us build our lives on the rock of character, steadfast and unshakable. Let us choose each day to act with honesty, courage, and love. Let us embrace the journey of becoming, knowing that in every struggle and every victory, God is shaping us into the people we were meant to be. This path is not easy, but it is eternal. It is the path of faithfulness, the way of holiness, the journey into the fullness of life, and as we walk it, we become living testimonies to the transformative power of God's grace, a grace that redeems, restores, and renews. The heart of hope beats strongest when the night is darkest, when the storms rage fiercest, when the weight of despair threatens to crush the soul. Hope is not a fragile wish cast upon the winds. It is a fierce flame, burning with the certainty of God's unyielding love and the promise of redemption. It is the anchor in the tempest, the sure ground beneath trembling feet, the unshakable belief that no darkness is final. To hope is to refuse surrender even when every circumstance screams defeat. It is the choice to look beyond what is seen and hold fast to what is unseen, the eternal truths that give life meaning and purpose. Hope is born not in our strength, but in the faithfulness of God, whose mercies are new every morning and whose promises never fail. Hope calls us to live courageously in the present, aware of pain and brokenness, yet unbowed by it. It transforms suffering from a place of despair into a wellspring of resilience. Like a seed buried deep beneath the soil, hope waits patiently, pushing upward through the darkness toward the light. It whispers to the weary soul, "This is not the end." Hope compels us to act, to reach out in compassion, to build bridges where walls once stood. It fuels the work of justice and mercy, inspiring us to be agents of change in a world desperate for healing. To hope is to believe that our small acts of love can ripple outward, touching lives beyond measure, weaving a tapestry of grace that defies hopelessness. Yet hope is not naive optimism, it is born of truth. It acknowledges pain, injustice, and loss without denying them. It is the refusal to look away or to numb the heart, but to face reality squarely, armed with faith. This realism, fused with trust in God's sovereignty, gives hope its power. It is the steady pulse beneath chaos, the calm within the storm. Hope is a communal gift, shared among those who walk the path of faith together. It is the song sung by the church through generations, a testimony to God's enduring presence. In community, hope is nurtured, strengthened, and passed on. It breaks the chains of isolation and reminds us that we are never alone. In the crucible of despair, hope is a lifeline thrown across the abyss. It pulls us from the depths of despair and sets our feet upon solid ground. It invites us to see beyond our present struggles to the glory that awaits, a glory not earned but freely given by grace. This vision sustains us, empowering us to endure and to persevere. Hope transforms how we see ourselves in the world. It shifts our gaze from what is broken to what can be healed, from what is lost to what can be found. It opens our hearts to forgiveness, restoring fractured relationships and renewing broken spirits. Through hope, wounds become scars of victory, testaments to survival and grace. The power of hope lies in its ability to renew, to bring life where death seems certain. It is the promise of spring after the harsh winter, the dawn after the longest night. Hope is God's hand reaching into our lives, lifting us up, carrying us forward into the light of new beginnings. When hope fills the soul, fear loses its grip. The shadows shrink and the path becomes clear. Hope fuels faith, and faith births love, love that transforms, heals, and redeems. This love is the heart of God made visible, a love that never fails. Hold fast to hope, for it is the gift that sustains the journey. Let it be your song in the silence, your strength in weakness, your peace in turmoil. Let it rise within you like a mighty river, overflowing into every part of your life. In the final reckoning, hope is the promise that all things will be made new. It is the dawn that never fades, the light that no darkness can overcome. Hope is the eternal word whispered by the Spirit, "Behold, I make all things new." Faith is the unseen thread that weaves together the tapestry of our existence, binding us to the eternal even when the visible world trembles beneath our feet. It is the quiet conviction that what we cannot see is nonetheless real, that the hand of God guides history, that His love enfolds us in every breath, that His promises hold fast beyond the shifting sands of circumstance. To live by faith is to walk through a misted valley, stepping forward without the full view of the path, trusting that each footfall is held firm by a hand stronger than our own. It is the courage to believe in what reason alone cannot grasp, the surrender of the soul to the certainty of a love that never fails, a justice that will not be denied, and a grace that covers all. Faith refuses to be shackled by doubt, though it does not dismiss it. It welcomes questions, wrestles with shadows, and yet chooses to cling to the rock beneath the waves. It is not blind belief, but eyes wide open, focused on the heart of God, who has revealed himself in Christ, the Word made flesh, the light in darkness, the living hope. In the landscape of faith, the impossible becomes possible. Mountains once immovable begin to shift. Chains that once bound fall away. The wilderness blooms with promise. Faith is the power that raises the dead within us. Dreams long buried, joy lost to sorrow, love hardened by pain. Faith draws us into a deeper intimacy with God, inviting us to listen to His voice amid the noise of the world. It softens the heart, making it fertile ground for the seeds of grace. It transforms the ordinary into the sacred, the mundane into the miraculous. Every moment becomes an opportunity to witness the unseen hand that shapes our story. Faith calls us beyond ourselves, beyond what is comfortable or convenient. It demands a radical trust that bends the knee to a higher authority, a surrender that breaks the chains of self-reliance. In that surrender, we find strength, not weakness, freedom, not captivity. Yet faith is not a solitary journey. It flourishes in the company of others who share the vision of God's kingdom. Together, faith becomes a fortress, a sanctuary where doubts can be voiced, hopes nurtured, and burdens shared. In community, faith grows, multiplied by encouragement and prayer. The measure of faith is not in the grandeur of our deeds, but in the quiet obedience to God's call. It is the mustard seed that, though small, grows into a sheltering tree. It is the daily decision to choose trust over fear, grace over judgment, hope over despair. Faith anchors us in the storms of life, preventing us from being swept away by the floods of uncertainty. It is the light that never flickers, the compass that never fails. Even when the night seems endless, faith holds the promise of dawn. Through faith, we become co-workers with God, partners in His redemptive plan. We are invited to step into the story He is writing, a story of love that conquers hate, of life that triumphs over death, of a kingdom that will never fade. Faith does not guarantee a life free from trials, but it guarantees a presence that never abandons. It turns the cross from a symbol of suffering into a beacon of hope, the grave from an end into a beginning. In every act of faith, we echo the ancient cries of saints who believed against all odds, who pressed forward in darkness, who held fast to God's promises with trembling hands but unwavering hearts. So let faith rise within you, not as a fragile hope, but as a fierce resolve. Let it be the lens through which you see your life and the world around you. Let it be the wind that fills your sails and the anchor that holds you fast. Walk boldly, live fully, love deeply, all by the power of faith that moves mountains and calms seas. In this faith, find your purpose, your peace, your joy. This is the inheritance of those who trust, not in themselves, but in the one who holds all things in His hands. Faith is the bridge from fear to freedom, from brokenness to wholeness, from despair to everlasting hope. Hope is the quiet flame burning within the darkest night, a light undimmed by the storm's rage or the shadows that threaten to swallow. It is the soul's secret song, a melody that whispers promises not yet fulfilled, but eternally assured. Hope does not deceive, it steadies. It does not waver, it endures. It is the heartbeat of the future, pulsing through the veins of the present with relentless grace. Hope is born when despair meets the gaze of God and refuses to look away. It is the anchor dropped deep into the unseen depths, gripping a foundation that will never fail. It carries the weary through seasons of waiting, the broken through valleys of loss, and the fearful through nights of uncertainty. It is not mere optimism, a fragile wish upon a fleeting star. Hope is rooted in the character of God, His unchanging nature, His steadfast love, His promises sealed by the blood of Christ. Because He lives, hope lives. Because He reigns, hope reigns. Hope calls us to rise from the ashes of yesterday's regrets and to step boldly into the dawn of tomorrow's possibilities. It transforms waiting into expectancy, silence into worship, the empty into abundance. It whispers to the heart that no matter how fierce the night, the sun will surely rise. Hope refuses to be confined by circumstances. It looks beyond the present pain and proclaims a greater story, a story of redemption, restoration, and resurrection. It sees the cross not as defeat, but as the victory that shattered death's grip forever. This hope is the pulse beneath the pain, the calm beneath the chaos, the strength beneath the weakness. It is the melody that stirs the soul to sing when tears threaten to fall, the courage to press on when all seems lost. Hope invites us to live with open hands and open hearts, trusting that God's provision is enough. It frees us from the tyranny of fear and the paralysis of doubt. It lifts the eyes from the dust of despair to the heights of glory. In hope, suffering is not meaningless but purposeful. Pain is not permanent but temporary. Loss is not final but a doorway to new life. Hope teaches us to embrace the tension between not yet and already, the waiting and the coming, the brokenness and the healing. It is the flame that lights the path when all else fades, the whisper that urges, keep going, when every voice inside screams, give up. Hope is a revolution of the heart, a defiance against despair, a proclamation that God's kingdom will come and His will shall be done. This hope is not passive but active, a fire that fuels faith and ignites love. It drives us to acts of courage, kindness, and sacrifice. It moves us to build bridges where walls stand, to sow peace where conflict rages, to bring light where darkness dwells. Hope teaches patience without resignation, joy without denial, peace without passivity. It is the strength to endure the present with eyes fixed on the promises of God. In the tapestry of life, hope is the golden thread weaving through trials and triumphs alike. It is the promise that every tear will be wiped away, every sorrow replaced with joy, every death conquered by life. Hold fast to hope not as a wish, but as a warrior's shield. Let it guard your heart and mind, protecting you from the despair that wants to claim you. Let it be the fire that warms your spirit and the light that guides your way. Hope is the breath of the soul, the pulse of the universe, the very essence of God's unending love. In hope, we find the courage to dream again, to love again, to live again. Do not let the weight of the world extinguish this sacred flame. Nurture it with prayer, feed it with God's word, and shelter it in the company of those who share the vision of a better tomorrow. Because hope is more than a feeling, it is the promise of God's presence, the assurance of His power, and the certainty of His victory. Hold to it, walk in it, live for it, for in hope the impossible becomes possible, and the soul finds its true home. Faith is the unyielding hand that reaches through the fog of uncertainty and grasps the invisible. It is the quiet confidence that the unseen is more real than the seen, that what God has promised will come to pass. Faith does not demand proof, it invites trust. It does not require certainty, it embraces conviction. It is the pulse that beats in the heart of every believer, the breath that sustains the weary soul when all else falters. Faith is not blind, it is clear-eyed and courageous. It is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to walk forward despite doubt. It is the bridge built over the chasms of fear and hesitation, spanning the divide between what is and what will be. Faith is the voice that calls us out of the safe harbor into the wild seas of God's purpose. To live by faith is to step into the unknown with the assurance that God goes before us, that His hand will guide and His strength will uphold. It is to move forward when the path is shrouded, when answers are distant and the future remains unwritten. Faith is the steady drumbeat beneath the chaos, the anchor holding firm in the storm. This faith is forged not in ease but in trial. It grows stronger when tested by fire and refined by endurance. It is not passive waiting but active trusting, not silent resignation but bold obedience. It is the quiet surrender of control, the letting go of fear, and the full embrace of God's will. Faith sees the invisible threads of God's hand weaving through every moment, every challenge, every blessing. It is the lens through which the ordinary becomes extraordinary, the mundane becomes sacred. It transforms suffering into strength, weakness into power, doubt into declaration. To walk by faith is to believe in the promises of God without seeing their immediate fulfillment. It is to trust that every tear, every struggle, every loss is held within His sovereign plan. Faith recognizes that God's timing is perfect, His ways are higher, and His love is unfailing. Faith is the heartbeat of all who have ever dared to hope against hope. It is the breath of those who believe the impossible is possible. It is the foundation upon which every promise of God stands firm. This faith does not isolate, it unites. It binds believers in a common hope, a shared journey toward a divine destiny. It invites us to live not for the applause of the world, but for the approval of God. It calls us to a higher standard, a deeper commitment, a more profound love. Faith teaches us to trust when understanding fails, to surrender when control slips away, to obey when the way is unclear. It calls us to be still and know that He is God, even when the night is darkest. Faith is the weapon that defeats despair, the shield that deflects fear, the sword that cuts through doubt. It is the courage to stand alone if need be, the strength to persevere when all others fall away. Faith moves mountains, not by the power of human will, but by the power of a God who reigns eternal. It changes hearts, transforms lives, and shapes destinies. It is the miracle that turns ashes into beauty and death into life. To have faith is to see beyond the horizon, to trust beyond the visible, to hope beyond the moment. It is to know that God is working all things for good, even when the outcome remains unseen. This faith is a sacred dance between the human and the divine, a partnership of trust and grace. It invites us to step out of fear and into freedom, to leave behind the chains of doubt and wear the garment of peace. Faith is the song of the soul that refuses to be silenced, the light that refuses to be dimmed, the flame that refuses to be extinguished. It is the testimony of every believer who has dared to say, "I will trust you, Lord, even when I cannot see the way." Hold fast to this faith, nurture it with prayer and the Word, and let it grow until it becomes the unshakable foundation of your life. For in faith, we find the strength to face each day, the courage to overcome each trial, and the peace that surpasses all understanding. Walk by faith, not by sight. Believe with all your heart. Trust in the one who holds tomorrow, for He is faithful and His promises are sure. Hope is the light that refuses to be swallowed by the darkness. It is the persistent flame burning quietly within the soul, even when the night feels endless and the shadows grow long. Hope is not naive optimism, but the fierce declaration that tomorrow holds more than today. It is the heartbeat of those who believe that beyond every trial, every sorrow, every heartbreak, there is a dawn that breaks, a promise fulfilled, a joy restored. Hope does not deny pain or ignore the weight of suffering. Rather, it acknowledges the depths of human struggle and chooses to believe that suffering is never final, that every winter is followed by spring, that every valley has a purpose, and every tear will be wiped away. It is the hand that reaches out to steady the staggering, the voice that whispers, "Hold on," when everything inside screams, "Surrender." Hope is born from the understanding that God's love is unchanging and His mercy is new every morning. It rests on the eternal truth that He who began a good work in us will bring it to completion. Hope is the anchor for the soul, sure and steadfast, holding us fast through the storms of life when every other support fails. It is not a passive waiting, but an active longing, a deep yearning for the fulfillment of God's promises, for the restoration of all things. Hope fuels perseverance, giving us strength to endure, courage to persist, and faith to believe when evidence is scarce. It is the quiet defiance against despair, the bold refusal to give up even when the odds are overwhelming. Hope is the lens through which the impossible becomes possible, where every setback is a setup for a comeback. It transforms the narrative of pain into a story of redemption, where brokenness is mended and loss is turned to gain. Hope whispers that every scar is a testament to survival, every struggle a step toward victory. In the face of uncertainty, hope shines like a beacon, calling us to keep moving forward. It is the hand that reaches out in the darkness, the light that breaks through the storm clouds. It is the voice of God speaking peace to the restless heart, reminding us that He holds the future and our days are written in His book. Hope is never alone. It is intertwined with faith and love. Faith plants the seed, love nourishes it, and hope blooms. Together they create a triad of strength that sustains the soul. Hope propels us beyond the present moment, drawing our eyes heavenward, anchoring us in the eternal. This hope is a gift, a divine spark placed within us that refuses to be quenched. It calls us to rise each day with renewed purpose, to face adversity with unwavering confidence, and to trust that no matter how dark the night, the dawn is coming. Hope challenges us to live not for the temporary but for the eternal, to fix our eyes on what cannot be seen but is sure to come. It calls us to live with open hands, willing to release the burdens of this world into God's care, knowing He will turn them into blessings. In the heart of hope lies the promise of transformation, that every broken dream can be restored, every loss replaced, every pain redeemed. Hope is the quiet revolution of the soul, turning despair into joy, sorrow into peace, death into life. Cling to hope as the lifeline it is. Let it guard your heart and mind against the cynicism of the world. Let it be the song that rises from your lips when the silence is deafening, the light that shines from your eyes when the darkness surrounds you. Hope is the companion of the journey, the fuel of endurance, the spark of revival. It is the quiet assurance that God's goodness will prevail, that His love will conquer, that His promises will never fail. Hold fast to hope. Let it rise within you like the dawn, unstoppable and unyielding. For in hope we find the strength to face the impossible, the courage to rise after every fall, and the peace that only God can give. Faith is the fierce courage to stand when everything inside wants to crumble. It is the invisible hand that steadies the trembling soul, the silent roar that defies despair. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to trust beyond what can be seen, to believe when the world offers no proof, to walk forward on a path shrouded in uncertainty. It is the quiet rebellion against the voice of fear that whispers, "You are alone." Faith speaks louder, "You are held." It is the anchor in a sea of shifting storms, the solid ground beneath feet that have no clear path to follow. Faith does not promise ease or exemption from pain. It promises presence, a steady companion through every trial. This faith is born from the recognition of God's unfailing character. It is the intimate knowing that He who has spoken the stars into existence is the same God who sees your tears and hears your cries. Faith trusts not in circumstances, but in the one who holds all things together, who is the author and finisher of every story. Faith bends the knee before mystery and uncertainty, embracing paradox rather than demanding all the answers. It chooses to believe in God's goodness when life screams otherwise. It chooses hope when the night is darkest, choosing to believe that the light will come again. With faith, the impossible becomes possible. Mountains move, chains break, and darkness yields to light, not because the world changes, but because the one who holds the world changes everything. Faith plants seeds in barren soil, believing in the harvest long before the first green shoot appears. It is a flame that never dies, even when wind and rain threaten to snuff it out. Faith is the quiet voice in the chaos saying, "This too shall pass, and you are never alone." It is the lifeline thrown to a drowning heart, the steady hand that pulls us from the depths of despair. Faith does not seek to control but to surrender, to release the illusion of control and trust in the divine orchestration of life. It says, "Your will, not mine," even when that path is steep and shadowed. Faith is freedom, not from difficulty, but from fear. Faith creates a sanctuary in the soul, a sacred space where doubt can coexist with trust, questions with peace. It opens the door to miracles by first opening the heart to possibility. Faith sees beyond the veil of the present moment into the vastness of God's eternal plan. It calls us to live boldly, to risk everything on the promise of God's love, to stand firm in the face of every storm. It challenges us to lay down our burdens and take up the yoke of trust, knowing that God's grace is sufficient for every step. This faith is the foundation of hope and the fuel of perseverance. It is the song that rises from the ashes of despair, the light that breaks through the darkest night. It is the power that transforms ordinary lives into testimonies of divine grace. Faith is a journey, not a destination. It grows with every trial, deepens with every surrender, and strengthens with every victory. It is the thread that weaves through the fabric of life, binding us to God and to one another. Embrace faith as your shield and your sword. Let it guard your heart against the attacks of doubt and despair. Let it be the anchor that holds you steady when the storms rage fiercest. Let it be the fire that warms your soul when the night is cold. In faith, find the courage to rise after every fall, the strength to press on when the road is long, and the peace to rest when the battle is done. Faith whispers the eternal truth that God's love never fails, His promises never fade, and His presence is forever near. Stand firm in faith, knowing that you are held by hands stronger than any storm. Trust in the unseen, walk by the Spirit, and live in the freedom that faith brings. For in faith, the soul finds its true home, and the heart discovers unshakable peace. The journey of life is not meant to be walked alone. It is a sacred invitation into community, into the intertwining of souls bound by love, hope, and shared purpose. We are not islands adrift on the sea, but threads woven into a tapestry that is far greater than any single strand. Each connection is a lifeline, a mirror reflecting the divine image within us all, a sacred echo of the one who first called us into being. In community, we discover our truest selves, not the self shaped by fear, pride, or isolation, but the self awakened to grace, compassion, and vulnerability. It is here, in the embrace of others, that we learn what it means to bear one another's burdens, to rejoice in each other's victories, and to stand as pillars of strength when the weight of the world presses hard. There is a divine rhythm to life lived together, an unspoken harmony that carries us beyond our weaknesses and fears. Like the branches of a great tree, we reach out in every direction, each drawing from the same source of life-giving water. When one branch suffers, the entire tree trembles. When one blooms, the whole is radiant. Such is the power of community. Yet community is not easy. It demands sacrifice, humility, and the willingness to show our scars without shame. It asks us to listen deeply, to forgive freely, and to love without conditions. It is the fertile soil where patience grows, where understanding blossoms, and where peace takes root. Within this sacred fellowship, we are invited to lay down the masks we wear for the world and reveal the tender, fragile beauty of our true selves. Here, imperfection is not only accepted, but embraced as part of the human journey. Here we find freedom from the crushing weight of pretense and the exhausting dance of approval. The bonds we form in community become a shelter in times of storm, a beacon in times of darkness, and a celebration in times of joy. They remind us that none of us was meant to carry the burdens of life alone, that strength multiplies when shared, and that love is the divine thread that unites all hearts. Community reflects the very heart of God, who exists eternally in perfect unity, Father, Son, and Spirit, forever intertwined in love. In joining together, we participate in that divine mystery, becoming reflections of God's image and witnesses to His kingdom on earth. To be part of community is to embrace a higher calling, to love not just in words but in actions, to serve not for recognition but for grace, to give not out of obligation, but from overflowing joy. It is to live in the truth that every person is sacred, every story precious, every soul a treasured gift. When we open our hearts to others, we open ourselves to transformation. The walls of isolation crumble, and we are healed by the gentle power of shared experience and unconditional love. We learn that vulnerability is strength, and that true courage is found in the willingness to be known and loved just as we are. In the tapestry of life, community is the vibrant color that breathes life into the threads of faith, hope, and love. It is the living proof that we are never truly alone, that God's presence is often made known through the hands and hearts of others. So let us lean into community with open arms and open hearts. Let us build bridges where walls have risen. Let us extend grace where judgment threatens. Let us be the hands that lift, the voices that encourage, and the feet that walk alongside. Together we can face the darkness with courage, sing into the silence with hope, and bring the light of God's love to a world longing for connection and belonging. In community, we become the body of Christ, diverse yet united, broken yet healing, imperfect yet beloved beyond measure. Let this truth sink deep into your soul. You are not alone. You are part of something greater, something eternal, something beautifully whole. And in that knowledge, find the strength to love fiercely, to live boldly, and to walk with unshakable faith. In the stillness of your heart, hear this final call, a summons to live not as shadows of fear or doubt, but as radiant beacons of hope and love that refuse to be extinguished. The journey you have walked, the battles you have faced, the wounds you have carried, they are not the end, but the fertile ground from which new life will spring, like a phoenix rising from ashes. Your soul is meant to soar beyond every despair, beyond every brokenness, into the glorious light of redemption. There is a power within you, born of the eternal, forged in the crucible of grace, that no darkness can overcome. It is a flame kindled by the breath of God, a fierce yet tender fire that burns away all that is false, leaving only what is true and holy. This power is not of your own making. It is a gift, a divine inheritance that calls you to step forward with courage and conviction. Your life is a story written by the hand of the Almighty, a sacred narrative where every chapter, every line, carries purpose and meaning. Even when the pages seem stained with tears or marked by loss, the author's hand never falters. He writes with a love that will never let you go, a love that transforms every trial into triumph, every sorrow into song. Do not be discouraged by the trials that seek to silence your voice or darken your path. These moments are but shadows in the grand tapestry of your destiny. They shape your character, refine your faith, and awaken the depths of your soul to the greatness of God's plan. The dawn always follows the night, and your dawn is breaking now. Lift your eyes to the horizon where the promise of a new day awaits. The sun rises not just to mark the passing of time, but to remind you that God's mercy is renewed with every breath, that His grace is sufficient and His love unending. You are called to rise with the sun, to live each moment as a testament to the power of resurrection and hope. Your hands, once weighed down by doubt and fear, are now instruments of healing and grace. Your feet, once faltering on uncertain ground, are steady and sure, walking the path of truth and righteousness. Your heart, once heavy with despair, now beats with the rhythm of heaven's joy and peace. The world around you thirsts for this light, this living hope that you carry. It is a beacon for the lost, a refuge for the weary, a song for the brokenhearted. Do not hide this light under a bushel. Let it shine boldly, fiercely, unashamedly. Let it break through the darkness, piercing the shadows with the brilliance of God's love. Remember, you are never alone. The Spirit of God dwells within you, a constant companion, a counselor, a source of endless strength. When your strength falters, He is your rock. When your faith wavers, He is your anchor. When your heart grows weary, He is your comforter. Walk forward with confidence, knowing that every step is guided by divine wisdom, every breath sustained by divine grace. You are part of a divine story that began before time and will continue beyond the stars. Your life is a testament to the eternal promise that love conquers all, that light dispels darkness, and that hope never dies. So stand tall, beloved, stand firm in the truth that you are chosen, cherished, and empowered. The world awaits your courage, your love, your witness. Live boldly, love fiercely, and shine with a light that cannot be dimmed. In this you become the living echo of the gospel, the good news of a God who came to seek and save, who walks with you through every valley and mounts every mountain by your side. You become a living testament to grace, mercy, and unbreakable hope. Rise now, embrace your calling, step into the fullness of life that awaits, and know this: you are deeply loved, eternally held, and forever part of a story greater than yourself, a story that is still being written, still unfolding, still rising. This is your moment, this is your life. Let it be a blaze of glory, a symphony of faith, a testament to the power of God's unending love.